Hello everybody and welcome back. As you can see, we're back once again with the 70 Chevelle here. Last week we got this thing up to the track and we made 5 runs with this thing under power the entire way. Could not be happier. Granted, we're a little slow. I think our fastest time was 15.6 at 86 miles per hour, but for what this thing is, I was just tickled to death. But as always, I think there's a little bit more on the table with this thing. So there was a lot of great comments. A lot of you guys noticed the same things I was noticing as well. First was that it was short shifting quite a bit. It was shifting around like 4,300 RPM, 4,400 RPM, right around there. Definitely not where we want it. I think we can get that a little bit later, keep us in the power band a little bit better. So we're going to tune on the governor in this thing just a little bit. We're going to try to tweak on the linkage there, see if we can actually get it where I can manually shift this thing consistently. And then the second issue, which was a little bit harder for you guys to notice, but I noticed it definitely, is you can smell this thing just runs pig rich. And I did a lot of research on these Amazon quadrajets, and it is pretty much to blame. They designed those things to just run ridiculously rich. It takes a good bit of effort to kind of go through and retune those things to dial them in a bit, but I can't dog on it too badly. I just basically took it out of the box, bolted it on the car here, and it did run pretty well. It cruised pretty well, and it even made it down the track. Not too bad either, but I think we can get some improvements here. So we're just going to go ahead and pull that Amazon one off, and we're just going to replace on it entirely. We picked a quadrajet up last year that was kind of tweaked and tuned on a little bit to make it a bit better for drag racing. So we're going to basically go through that one, put new gaskets in it since it's been sitting on a shelf for a number of years. We're going to slap that on here and see if we can get that one dialed in just a little bit better. And then hopefully next week, I believe there's another track day, we'll try to get her to the track and see if we can pick up just a couple of tenths, see if we can just squeeze a little bit more out of this old 402 here. But it has been a blast so far. So let's get right into it. Let's get this Amazon quadrant off of here. Maybe we'll blow that apart and I'll show you some of the findings that I read about as well. And we'll just try to get this thing dialed in. So back here on the workbench, I've got all my quadrajets laid out here. So this is the Amazon quadrajet. Looks really nice. It's pretty lightweight here, so not sure if they've got that just cast out of complete aluminum here. It's definitely lighter than all the rest, but just runs pig rich. Now, overall, it's really not too bad a condition. Like all my linkages and stuff like that were in pretty good shape. I've read some horror stories about people getting them and things are just kind of mangled up and pretty bent up where things just aren't working right, and like the pull-offs don't work right and things like that. Never really had those problems with this one. It ran pretty well out of the box, but it's just stupid rich. So maybe we'll blow that apart here in a little bit, take a peek inside there and kind of compare and contrast. But this is the quadrajet we're going to end up using here. And I picked this up from ET Enterprises last year. They're out here in Michigan. If you've never heard of them or their YouTube channel, the guy has got just any number of big block parts you can think of. Heads, blocks, intake manifolds, cams, pretty much anything you can think of. And ended up going out there last year. I picked up the Edelbrock RPM intake manifold here for the quadrajet, grabbed a pair of heads from them, and I ended up picking up this here quadrajet just in case we had problems with the Amazon. And the tag here just says it's from a 74, it was a 454 quadrajet, and it had been rebuilt for racing by Carl Gilbert. Not sure if anybody knows who that might be or not, but they have a couple of tweaks you can see that are done to it, like the choke here is just kind of mangled over, holding it open, some things like that. I think they tuned on the secondaries door here quite a bit as well, but it's been sitting on a shelf for quite a long time, so that's why I'm going to pull it apart, try to get some new gaskets in there just to make sure they're not all dried out or anything like that. And I'm not kind of entirely sure like what kind of jets and rods are set up in this thing, so it might be set up for something a bit bigger than what we're running already, and that would just make it worse probably than what we're getting with the Amazon there. In the back here we've got our original quadrajet. Tried and tried and tried to get that thing going for us, but unfortunately just had a number of issues with it. There was just a bunch of things bent up and completely wrong on it, to like the little arm here, or the carrier for the rods on the secondaries there was just bent and mangled up. It was missing the spring for the power valve and a couple of other issues there, and I ended up picking this one up here that was just pulled off of, I think, a late 70s, something like that, 454. Quite a bit different design from the original old school Quadrajet, but I just pilfered parts from that, tried to transplant them on our original Quadrajet, see if we could get that working out for us, but no such luck. But I've got it here because I'm going to go ahead and pull these jets out just so I have them on hand in case we need to swap them into this guy here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on some of this. Going to probably strip this one down, get all the rods out of this thing, get the jets out of it, kind of get those inventoried. Might also strip this one down as well, grab these jets, all these rods, then I'll just sort of toss that aside because I'm not going to need either of those cases. And then we'll start on the new guy here, excuse me, getting this one stripped down, and we'll see what this is equipped with. I was just kind of comparing differences here, checking over the linkages, everything else, and clearly we saw before that this one has the choke basically pinned open, so the little rod right there is missing. Not a big deal. We can probably get away without that. The one thing I did notice is that it's missing the little diaphragm driven rod here for the secondary plates. This one right here. So I pilfered the one off of this carburetor here. This guy right here. And we'll probably just go ahead and install that on there. Just get that in place, since these secondaries do kind of hang a little bit, just to make sure that they get pulled back shut. I'm not sure if that's part of the tweak or if somebody just forgot to put that in there. Not really sure what you'd normally do on these to get them all hopped up for racing. I know a lot of it involves the setup for your spring tension here on the secondaries. And this one's not too bad. It's got a little bit of tension, but it's not terribly bad. They do shut nice and positively. They don't sit there and just vibrate around. The original here is maybe just a touch softer, just barely, on the spring tension there. And then we get over to the Amazon here, and it's a lot stiffer. It takes a significant more effort to get those to open than what we've got on either of these two here. And it felt like they were opening and responding pretty well on the Quadrajet here. It didn't really feel like they were hitting super late, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens when we get this one on here, which has a little bit more tension, but compared to the original still, it's kind of in the middle here. Maybe not necessarily a little bit in the middle. It's probably leaning more towards this in terms of softness, because this one is significantly stiffer. So other than that, that's really the only external difference I noticed, other than like the choke rod here. Most of the linkages look like they're all nice and set up properly, stuff like that. So I know, again, on these Amazon ones, it's pretty common to get them where things are just kind of mangled and you have to spend a lot of time straightening and adjusting yourself. I think I kind of got lucky in that sense. Everything looks to be okay so far. So let's go ahead, crack this guy open. We'll check on the jets in here. We'll see if we can read the rods there as well, figure out what kind of rods are in here. And we'll get some new gaskets in here and try to get this thing up and going again. So I went ahead and pulled the cover off of the 454 rebuilt Quadrajet there, and it looks beautiful in here. It is just absolutely clean. The gaskets are still nice and pliable. We probably really didn't even need to take this apart. So I was going through here just checking out the jets that we've got. This is equipped with some 76 jets here. The rods that came with it, I believe these ones were DH rods, which is pretty close to correct. I went and looked up the year and stuff like that for the different rods and what should be equipped in those. And this one seems to be relatively right for around that 74 year there. These 76 jets should be pretty close to what we need. I looked up the original Quadrajet for what our 402 should have had on it, and it would have came with I believe 77s with a 42 rod. So I need to get my calipers out and measure the primary rods, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be correct for this. So I pulled the jets out of our original as well here, and unfortunately I just haven't been able to get any numbers off of these. The camera here is not really going to pick them up very well, but the only numbers I could find were like an 8 and a 6 that are kind of separated, and it definitely seems like this is bigger than a 68. I would not think they would have had a 68 installed in these. That would have been really small. They should have had at least like a 77 when I was looking it up, and I think most of the 77s or 70s came with a 78 around there, but they were making a little bit more power. So I think we're going to be okay with these 76s here. Now, it's a big toss-up on what comes in these Amazons. Some people say that they flow out around like a 73, but there's so many other little tricks and weird voodoo going on in here that makes these things run rich. So we're just going to kind of leave this one alone. We're going to leave those 76s in there. I'm going to check and see what kind of primary rods we've got. Just need to figure out where my dial calipers are, but I'm sure they're going to be correct for this. So we're just going to kind of reassemble this thing, pretend we didn't really even do much of anything. I'm probably going to keep the gaskets. They didn't tear. They're nice and pliable. Everything's looking good there. So just going to probably reassemble this thing, bolt it on the car, and we'll see how she does, see if we need to do any kind of tweaking from there. I've got a couple other rods here we can play with. The rods that came on the spare 454 here are unmarked. The rods that were in this original here were marked with, looks like DP, which I couldn't find anything in the period that should have been running a DP rod, so maybe this quadjet came from something else or was just kind of cobbled together as well, so a bit confusing on that one. So we're just going to go ahead, put this one back together, slap it on the car, and see how she runs. So let's go ahead and take a quick gander here at the Amazon quadjet. Now, I really didn't have a whole lot of problems with this thing. I mean, I just bolted it on and sent it as it was, and it did run. Didn't really fall on its face or anything. It ran pretty good for just being out of the box, but it's definitely pretty pig rich here. So let's just take a quick peek at it here. So on mine, all of the linkages here seem to be pretty good. They weren't really mangled up or anything like that. All the throttle stop, things like that seem to work just fine. Looks like one of them's bent a little slightly right. My finger is pointing there. But it didn't really seem to impact anything, so if we set her upside down here, dump some fuel out of it. So, one thing I always heard of is that they wouldn't open the plates up completely there when you hold it at wide open throttle, and definitely wasn't an issue on this one here. Everything opens up all the way, nice and clean, pretty much straight up and down through there. But for the most part, it seemed like it operated fairly well, other than just being pig rich. Over on this side, all the pull-offs here for the secondaries and things like that all worked absolutely fine with the little choke rod that I had set up. The factory style little choke there with the heat riser and everything else was all working beautifully. So let's go ahead and dissect this just a little bit more, get this upper cover off here, take a peek at these rods. I hear that their rods are kind of a really odd design. So let's take a look at those. So I pulled the metering rods out of this here, and I've got 3 of them together. And to give you an idea here, they end up looking a lot like my DH rods there. The overall profile, the tip size, everything else looks very, very close to the DH. So I'm a bit surprised by that. A lot of people said that the rods in these were pretty wild and just completely out there, but that's not too bad at all. Now, the one that was on the left here with the different style tip is the one that's out of my, it's the later style one that I picked up just for parts there, and that one doesn't have any kind of number on it, and neither does the one here out of the Amazon. But pretty interesting to know, so you probably would be able to run just regular rods through this thing just fine. Everything I had read about them said that they were kind of wonky and nobody was quite sure if they would actually work in here or not, but those look pretty good to me. So let's go ahead and get this cover off, keep digging through this thing. So underneath the cover here, everything looks to be pretty good. The gasket here came out just fine, nice and pliable. No tears, no breaks or anything like that. Some people said that they opened them up and they had tears and they were broken. Looks like we just have a regular style brass float in here. Looks like the needle and seat are hung correctly. I've seen some people complain that they were in there incorrectly. Well, it takes a bit of force trying to get the primary rods out of there, so I'm going to grab a hold of those with some pliers, see if I can pop that out right quick. So looking here at the bottom side, all of the slots look to be in the correct locations here. And the throttle's closed, just a tiny little bit of transfer there is visible on each side. Got the air slot over there that should be in place. Everything looks pretty much exactly like what I'm seeing on my original style there, so everything looks to be pretty dang good on this thing so far. I did go ahead and measure up the jets, and they are about 71 size. And if we flip this back over here, for the most part, it's pretty dang clean in here. There's just a little bit of debris that I had picked up, but nothing too bad that I can see overall. So it seems to be built fairly well for the most part. It definitely just does run rich, and there's a lot of air bleeds in here, which I believe could be part of the culprit. Just comparing over here to the original style setup there and trying to see if they're different sizes or anything like that that stands out, but not noticing too much at the moment. They seem to be pretty close in design. So very similar overall to my original style quadrijet there. Probably could have just done a little bit of tuning on this thing and got it pretty close, but again, I paid 20 bucks for this thing. For that price, I definitely can't complain. It seems to be built fairly well. There's just nothing I can really find to complain about it. Looks like it's got the high flow needle and seat in there. Seemed like the float was adjusted well. No real complaints that I can find. It just wants to run very rich for some reason. Probably just a little bit of tuning would have taken care of that, but certainly not bad at all. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this thing back together, and we're just going to keep on trucking. I've got the new quadrijet all mounted up there, got everything connected back up. I had to adjust on the linkage just a little bit because the throttle stop wasn't actually touching the set screw. So got that straightened away. Everything should be all set now. We're going to go ahead and fire her up, do a little bit of tuning here, see how she runs, and hopefully go for a quick drive. Fired up here pretty easy for me. Did just a little bit of tuning on there, got it sitting at around 800 RPM. Sounds pretty good. Definitely seems a little bit snappier there off the throttle, just a little bit. Just revving it up while it's sitting here, but I'm gonna go ahead, get the air cleaner back on here, and we'll go for a quick test drive. So we should be all set for a quick little test drive here. See how this new carburetor works out for us. And overall, it seems like it's idling pretty close to the same and maybe a little bit smoother. It's more consistent. On the other train, or the other quadrijet rather, the idle would idle a little bit high at first, and then as it warmed up, it would drop down significantly, and then it would kind of hunt a little bit. Right now, it seems to be pretty consistent. It changes just a little bit between cold and warm. But the car seems to want to like transition a lot faster right now. At these lower speeds, it feels like I'm having to give it a little less throttle input to get it going. So back up underneath the car here, we are after that guy straight ahead once more. Car is a bit warm here, so I gotta be careful of that exhaust. Try not to get burnt, but I'm gonna try to weasel that out of here, and we'll play around with the weights and see what we can get going for us. So I've got the governor here removed. Next I just need to snip off the little crimp here on the end of the little nails that holds everything together. Then we can pull this apart, and we're gonna take the inner weights here, these ones right where my thumbnail there is pointing, and we're going to put them on the scale, weigh those up, see what we've got in weight. Then we're going to open up the package of the new ones right here that we got from Summit, weigh all of those out, and do a little bit of tuning here, see if we can get this dialed in just a little bit better. So I took everything apart here, just been going over it, inspecting on all of it. Everything looks to be in pretty good shape here. Our piston is nice and clean and moves very freely in there. Made sure that that little hole there wasn't plugged up. Everything is nice and clean on this, so no real work to do there. The teeth here on the gear are a little bit more chewed up than I remember. They're definitely looking a little bit brittle, so we'll have to tune on that a little bit. But for now, it should be good to go. When we have the transmission rebuilt, we get that gear vendor's overdrive on there and stuff like that, we'll probably come through and make sure we change out on the gear for this. But let's go ahead and get these things on the scale here. I'm going to wipe them down, just make sure there's no oil on them, messing any of the weight up here, and we'll measure them out and see what they come out as. Alright, so our original weight is about 23 grams, and that's getting us shifts at around 4,200. Now, I'm definitely not all that experienced on tuning these out. It can be a bit of a chore, but from everything I've read, around 15, 16 should get us around where we want to be here. So we've got a bunch of different numbers here, lots of different designs on how they've shaved the weight off of these things. So let's try to put together a combination here that is going to get us close to what we want. So this one here is the D code, and that's 8.2. What happens if we mix that with an E? Okay, that gets us about 15.2. That's pretty close. Let's see what that one weighs by itself. That one's really light. That one's about a 6.9, pretty close to 7 for the E. And then the D is 8.4 for giggles. What's the C weigh? Okay, so the C is about 10. B is about 12.7. So it looks like there's a bit of a range between some of these here. E is going to be 6.9. F is 6.4. And that's going to be too light for us. And D, that's what, 18. 15.2. Okay, so I think this might end up being our combination here, the number E and the number D. It gets us to 15.2 ounces. Everything I read said that should get us around 51 to 5200 RPM shifts. We're going to slap this together and go hit the road and see how close we get. I've got everything here reassembled, got all the proper weights in there. We should be at about 15.2 ounces here. Should make quite the difference. I made sure I got all the little C-clips installed on the shafts correctly there, since they give you just removable C-clips instead of using the nails and having to crimp them. But everything should be good to go. We're going to go ahead and get this installed back in the car and see if we can go out for another run and see what it does. Alright, so we've shaved about 7 to 8 grams off of the governor there. Let's go out for a test drive here and see what we get. Picked up a little bit of a rattle here in the door, which I'm not entirely sure if it's just the window tracks or what, but a little on the annoying side. Alright, so I'm going to try out my second to third shift here, just cruising along at maybe about 35, 40 miles per hour here. Going to let it downshift in a second and see where she shifts back up in the third. running like 5,500. Definitely need to put one more of the lighter weights on there, get her down to around that 18 grams or so, and I think she'll be dialed in pretty good. The first to second shift there, we spun first gear a ton, which this car just is rarely done. It usually just kind of chirps first gear, and it certainly seems like we're making a bit more power here. But you could definitely tell that she was pretty much out of steam there at the top end. Didn't have much more to give before she finally shifted. We need to get that down slightly. We need to get her closer to that 5,100 range. I'm thinking if we go with about that 18 grams there, we should be good. So I definitely took a little bit too big of a swing there. With that 15 grams all together there, we were getting shifts way too late, especially on that second and third. It was around 5,400 RPM, and we just did not have anything left in the old girl here. So I'm going to go ahead, hop back underneath the car right quick, get that thing pulled out. We'll drop in one of the lighter weights, see if we can get us around like 17, 18 grams, somewhere around there, slap her all back together. Fortunately, it's getting pretty dark out, so I don't think we'll be able to do the test run today. Hope we'll give that a try first thing in the morning. Other than that, car is running beautifully with that new quadjet on there. This thing is smoking first gear like it has never done before, so I don't know if that's going to work for us or against us. Now at the track, we really didn't have any kind of traction issues because we just didn't seem to have enough power off the line to really break free, and well, right now it's spinning those things pretty much at will, so that may be a new problem for us. Definitely a lot of fun out here, just trying different things and seeing how it's reacting to it. That quadjet really woke this thing up quite a bit, but it may cause us some traction issues now, so we'll see. Gonna go ahead and get this governor going here, get that all dialed up and buttoned up for tonight, and I think that might be it until tomorrow. So last night I pulled the governor back out here, got us up to about 17.5 grams. We're gonna go and give that a try here, see if that works out for us. Hopefully we don't have to make any further adjustments. That's quite a bit of work here, but we'll see how this one goes. Hopefully we get them right around that 5,000 mark. Seems like we really run out of steam if we get pretty much anything above 5,000. So if I can get them right there, I think we'll have it dialed in. So let's hop in the car here, go for another test run. I've got a different mic setup this time, so hopefully you'll be able to actually hear me this time. It's been a constant fight trying to get mics to sync here with this GoPro, so hopefully that'll be a little bit better. So let's get loaded up and head on out. All right, let's go and see what about 18 grams will do for us. Kind of let off there. We're starting to get into a little bit of traffic there for the second shift, but certainly seems like it might be a little bit better. Second shift there is doing pretty good. It's right around 5,100. We're losing just a little bit of steam though, it feels like. Feels like we might want that just a touch earlier. I just can't get away from traffic enough to be able to test the other shift. Definitely running out of steam there once we get past 5,000 RPM, and with our 17 grams there, it's shifting around maybe 5,200, somewhere around there, and it's pretty noticeably just running out of steam. So I think we might try to put some 19s in there, get us at 19 grams, get us around like 40 The car continues to run pretty well with that new quadrijet in there, but we're still getting pretty late shifts. So they're right around that 51, 5200 mark right now. And you can tell we're just running out of steam up there. So this engine here should be making peak horsepower around like 4400 RPM. And typically I think they say the rule is you want to shift maybe about 10% beyond that. So that'd put us around, I think, 4800, 4900. And you can tell once we get to about 5000, we really just run out of steam there. So I think we're really losing a lot by forcing it to wind out there. Gonna go ahead, try this again. We're gonna go for around 19 to 20 grams this time. See if we can bring that down to right around that 5000 mark. I think that might be the sweet spot here for this particular setup. And then we'll go out and give it a try once more. All right, so this is now about the 7th attempt. Things just did not go very well. Made a bunch of different changes there. Was running around about 17 grams, and it was shifting really late around like 5300, somewhere around there. Went up to about 18. It still was pretty late, around like 51, 5200. So then I went to 20 grams, and 20 grams got us like 4500 RPM in our second to third shift. And I was like, okay, that's pretty close. So then I put in 19 grams, 1 gram less, and it went back to like 5200, 5300. So I was really frustrated, really annoyed. Had to fight with it a little bit. Then I discovered that some of the weight designs are kind of weird and a little awkward the way they're set up, and so I ended up taking one of my original weights, kind of grinding some of the weight off of there, getting us to about 19 and a half, and that's what we're going to go test out here right now. So this is about attempt number 7. Hopefully this gets us in the neighborhood. Getting kind of tired of doing this by now. Not bad at all. Actually, that may have been our second to third. Definitely pretty good for us. We'll try to slow down a little bit here, and we'll maybe try that one more time. Alright, so yeah, it's right around 4800-ish, that vicinity. Definitely still in the power band, not falling on its face yet. Shifted us down, and we're still in the power band where it's hitting at, so pretty happy with that. I'd really like to be able to see my first and second where that's at, since we had a bit of a split earlier. If I can just figure out where that's at, I'm going to be pretty happy with this setup so far. Definitely frustrating that it took me this long to get it to this close. I mean, probably get like another 100 RPM out of it, but I don't even know what more I could possibly do. I'd have to like just shave another quarter of a gram off, something like that. I mean, it's so fine tuning right now that I'm pretty happy with what we got. Might just leave it at that. So let's go ahead and see if we can get our first 4,500. Second to third there was a little bit quicker this time, around like 4,700, but I'm okay with that split. It seems like about the best we can get. Otherwise, we're just going to have to get very nitpicky with those weights. Just trying to split hairs there, but pretty happy with this setup. Feels like we've gained about 500-600 RPM or so. It seems like we're pulling through all of that we've added onto it, so that should hopefully make a difference at the track. So we made it back home here, and I'm pretty happy with the results so far. So this quadrijet under here seems to be doing a really good job for us. Feels like we just have a lot more power on the low end. It seems like it's getting up and going a lot faster than it did before. That may cause us some traction problems because it's been spinning these rear tires here pretty easily down in first to there. So our shift points now is about 4,400, 4,500 from first to second, and about 47, 4,800 from second to third. I am perfectly fine with that. It would be nice to maybe shift that just another 100 RPM or so, but with the fight that I had with those Summit weights for the governor there, I think this is as close as I'm going to get without just having to get more creative. I already had to grind down one of the original weights and stuff like that to really dial it in where I needed it to be, but I think we're there. So a lot of people mentioned the timing on this thing and recommended going through and retuning the timing and putting different springs in and all of that. That has already been done in a previous video. I did that quite a while ago. I think we're pretty good on the timing for this. I can't remember if we were 14 or 15 degrees base, and then all in we're around like 36 degrees, somewhere around there, and it seems to be pretty happy with that. There's a lot of recommendations out there to shift it manually. I am going to try to get that linkage dialed in, but I'm just out of time this week for the video here, so that'll probably just end up in the actual race video for next week. But a lot of you were saying to wind this thing out to 52, 5,300 RPM and manually shift it, but as you saw there, this engine just doesn't have that in it. It pretty much falls on its face almost as soon as it hits 5,000. Once it's beyond there, around 51, 52, it's just, there's nothing left. There's no pull, no nothing. I feel like where we've got it dialed in right now, it's pretty good. It's right on the money for the most part. I think our peak horsepower is right around that 4,400 RPM range. That's where our first to second shift is happening, and we're getting a pretty good power down in that second gear when it hits. We're not chirping the tires anymore, but you know, I'm okay with that because I feel like we're just gaining a little bit more speed now, carrying a bit more momentum, but we're still hitting the power band and we're definitely in it. So I don't think we're going to be hurting on that. Our second to third seems to be right on the money, right on the sweet spot. We're still pulling right as it shifts there, so it's not quite running out of steam yet. It's getting us right in the power band when it hits third. So not quite sure what all of this is going to add up on. That's going to be the fun guess when we get back to the track here. Our track conditions look like they're going to be pretty similar to what we had last time, so the weather shouldn't play too much part in it. It's just going to be my experience level and getting off the line, and then the changes that we've made so far. So feel free to drop your guesses down below. We will try to get this back out there next week and see what she does. Just want to thank you all once again for your comments, for watching, and I will catch you next week.